Welcome to the channel. This week we're launching how to make our new crochet vest pattern, and I'm calling it the Versatile Vest. I'll walk you through everything you need and step by step what you need to do to follow the pattern. Now I designed this pattern to be worn with everything from shorts and flip-flops to elegant dinners out, and I am really excited about how this pattern turned out and to launch it because it is a good addition to any travel wardrobe. Now, we designed this to be a very simply constructed vest, so you won't need any special materials to do this. I used a 5.5 crochet hook, and I picked a silver gray yarn that I found with Taylor, and it's a pretty typical 3-weight that is baby soft, and for me that was important for wearing the vest alone against your skin. And then I had some Taylor bamboo that was stashed from another project, so I'm going to use some of this doubled up or on its own just to show some trim color options for the pattern, but you could definitely make it in just one yarn. And I did make it a paid pattern because we are raising money for cancer charities. So thank you to everyone who considers purchasing it. We really do appreciate the support. So if you would like to follow along with the 20-page PDF, it has all of the size measurements and stitch counts, and it's very easy to access. You can get it from Ravelry, and I've put my links in, or from my blog website. So either is an easy way to get a hold of the pattern. And let's get started on how we kind of made this menswear inspired vest. It is just 3 pieces. So again, I found the beginner vest a little bit boxy, and I wanted something that was a little bit more tailored, and I was inspired by some menswear's pieces, but I would say that we kept the skill level as pretty intermediate. And the stitch is a single slip stitch back loop only with a pattern repeat that I'll talk about, but my gauge on the slip stitch is 5 stitches per inch. So I quite liked the easy, larger kind of look of the hook with a 5.5 versus, a smaller hook that was giving me a little bit of a too tight stitch on this piece. So I think it's an intermediate. We are doing a crossover double-breasted. That means that for the points we have some increases and buttonholes, but it's nothing very complicated. So let's get started. Step 1 is really to take just a minute and think about the measurements. Now in the pattern, I've included all the sizes from small through extra large, but someone you're making it for might be a half size, and you need to, just think about the sizing for a minute before you start to make sure you get the fit perfect. And if you're noting the measurements for the person, if it's for you or someone else that you're making the vest for, in addition to the length and the width that's going to help you determine what size you're going to make, or if you need to make any adaptations, also think about whether or not you have someone with a slightly longer torso. So you might want to just make a minor adjustment there, or if they prefer a looser armhole. So I've fit this armhole so that it works well if you're wearing nothing under the vest, but does accommodate, a t-shirt or a long sleeve shirt or a dress shirt underneath without sort of me struggling. And so I found it sort of, the perfect balance between snug for wearing on its own or loose enough if I want to wear it and layer it. So that would be an important consideration if you want someone with a slightly different preference on the armhole. If you are also making it for someone with a significantly larger bust line, I have someone that I make patterns for often on that. I've also put into the pattern some links to some short row tutorials, because I would make, and my recommendation would be to do short rows for a very large bust line on the outer panel. So again, I'm making the first panel. I'm a left-handed crocheter. I'm going to work left to right in the video, and I'll make notes for right-handed people. But this outer panel is the important panel to make those bust line short rows in if you do need to make accommodations for someone from that point as well. And again, I'll also point out in the pattern, you could easily adapt if you have a preference for either a longer or a shorter neckline as we go through the pattern as well. So very simple ways to make sure this sort of menswear inspired tailored vest really does look very flattering on whoever you're going to make it for. And again, I'll highlight some of those key rows or key places as we go through the pattern and think about fit as well. So I did pick it as a menswear vest. We are then going to do increases down to the longest point to the vest. So on the medium, it is a 21 inch from the shoulder to this point. And I also start the neckline decreases at the point to come across to where we're going to place the buttonholes for these two front panels. So again, not a complicated pattern, 3 very, I think, easy pieces to make. I'm going to show in detail the left-handed panel as we start off working left over, and the right panel is really just a simple mirror of that first panel. So once you've done your first panel, you will just basically repeat the process to create the mirrored effect on the other side, and you will be able to easily create this lovely kind of more tailored crossover vest version. So as we start, again, width, length, important measurements, but because we're working side to side, very easy as we start off to think about any tweaks we want to make as we chain to the underarm or want to make a longer chain accommodate for a different size of armhole. Very easy to adapt the pattern to do those. And I, again, followed along with my templates. So I was using these to make sure that I did the perfect row counts and really made the right increases and decreases at the right points to give you just an elegant vest version. So our step to begin is really to chain up the side, which is where we're going to secure the front panel to the back panel as well. So we're chaining from the hem up to the underarm. And because I'm a lefty, I'm chaining hem up, but if you're a right person, I know in the pattern you'd be starting probably at the underarm and working your way down. Now I mentioned that the slip stitch back loop only is 5 stitches per inch. I wanted a bit more interest, and so I did an 8-row pattern repeat for this vest. And it's 6 stitches of the slip stitch back loop only with 2 rows of half double crochet slip stitch back loop only to give me this little kind of laid back piece that's giving me this stripe effect. And I like the fatter kind of width of 6 slip stitch rows, but again, you could play around with this and change that to 3 for a thinner look. And when I looked at the 8-row pattern repeat, I'm about 1.23 inches on my kind of pattern repeat as we go across and work across the front. So again, we're chaining for the right size to get you from the underarm down to the hem, and we are just going to start working out our slip stitch rows, and really important to add markers of different colors so that as you follow along, you remember which one is the hem increase or decrease and what is the underarm increase or decrease. And again, I'm just using the blue here to show a bit of a stripe that will carry up as a trim option around the arm. So the other things I noted in the pattern as we do these increases is I'm doing a very simple chain to increase. So you're chaining to working your increase into the first stitch, and then the second is just your working chain. The other note I'll make is if you're really not sure about all these increases, you can absolutely slip stitch that last stitch in the row under both loops. And if that makes you more comfortable, if you get a better, smoother edge to your pieces by doing both loops, please feel free to do that instead of back loop only. You won't notice anything different in the pattern, and if that works out better for you, that is a great way to just again make sure you have the smoother rows as you work across the edge. So we are just going to again work across, again making our increases as we go through this very sort of narrow underarm piece that is just giving us, again, a nice, snug, tailored fit. And once we get to working towards the shoulder, we are just simply going to chain up the number of chains we need to go from the underarm up to that lower shoulder part. So again, those are all in the stitch counts, but a very simple way of increasing now to get to the correct shoulder height that you would like to have for the vest. So you can see how easy it is if we need to make any minor adaptations here. Now, if you are adapting, the only other tip I'm going to put in is to make sure that this row is one of the slip stitch rows. The half double crochet rows are much wider, and so just doing this increase and chain on a slip stitch row, slip stitch back loop only, will give you just a really clean, lovely edge to your armhole. So we will continue then to work across the rest of the panel. Again, keeping that 8-row pattern stitch repeat as we work our way across. And we will make a few increases on the shoulder just to take us up to the neckline. And we are working a lot of increases on a steady way to make the point that is going to be kind of the feature at the front of the vest. So we'll just continue across. Once we get to the point, we will start doing deep decreases to make our V-neck. And again, do not panic if you don't have a perfectly smooth hemline. I made a lot of the prototypes, and really honestly, once you add a bit of trim, you won't even notice anything kind of just slightly off on the neckline or the hems. Now, I did mention we have buttonholes. We have 2 decorative buttons on the outside. I just did for the size of button, I picked a chain 4 opening for the buttonhole. So again, very easy to adapt depending on the types of decorative buttons you pick for the outside of the piece. And again, the trim options will let you smooth out a very nice hem to finish off each of your panels. So the panels do have a slightly narrower shoulder than some of the earlier prototypes if you watched earlier videos, and I ended up thinking that would be just nice as we look at the piece worn with nothing underneath. It just became a little bit more streamlined and a little bit more elegant. So we will finish off this first panel and tie off our ends, and then for our second panel, it's the inside panel on my version. You really are just going to mirror the exact same process in order to create the second piece. So very simple. And again, follow the instructions, and then we will begin to work on the back. Now the back piece is also very easy because you're going to follow the same panel on starting at the side to the underarm, working up. The hem is straight across, so we have a very simple hem to work with. And then I did end up putting just a slight decrease for your neck. So the back panel is very easy to do. Now, in an earlier video, I mentioned that as I did this back panel, I was about 6 inches much too wide on one of the prototypes, and I had to cut 3 inches off each side. And I got lots of questions about how I did such a drastic reduction as I was testing out my prototype, and a few panicked when I said I actually cut the piece, because of course we chained on that side to adhere it, and that's where I needed to make it narrower. So I can attest, if you have not done this before and you were in a bit of a gasp when I said I cut it, that it is not fake news. It is something that there are lots of great tutorials for, because you just slip in a yarn down the row that you want to secure, then you cut the piece, and then because I was using slip stitch, I slip stitched up the cut piece, and at the end it's barely noticeable as we assemble and finish off the vest. So not to panic if you have a big fix, that is something that you could consider as well. So we have our 3 panels. We are going to assemble them by working on a stitch, or however you prefer to assemble, across the shoulders and down the sides. And then I have put in a couple of trim options. So again, I was using the blue just to kind of give a bit of an interest and a way of finishing it off to make it, again, a little bit sporty, a little bit more interesting. But I have a wider border stitch that you could test out if you prefer a wider stitch. I ended up on the final version with a simple slip stitch. So I went around the entire piece first in the silver gray, and that again just made perfect edges to each of the borders. And then I did go around with a double width on the armholes in blue, and I did just a simple single of the blue kind of hint of blue around the entire vest as a way of finishing off the final piece. But this earlier prototype also has the wider border stitch, and I'm going to use that in some of our future video shares, as well as I can show different options and different stitches that I've done on the vest as just other ways of creating other versions. So I did go back to a very simple slip stitch and finished it off just to be a very sort of clean look, and it did then also block out very nicely. So most of the photos in our video today are before I did blocking, but the vest blocked very nicely as well. So let me know your thoughts, and again, lots of different ways of wearing it. I think it is a very versatile piece. I'm liking how it fits and how it wears, so I'm really thrilled with it. And again, as you block it out, you really get some sharp points and fits on it as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing your versions and hearing your feedback. And in a few weeks, we will post some more videos about different stitch alternatives, putting belts across the back and shawl collars on the front, and lots of other ways that you can get creative. So I look forward to seeing all of your ideas if you try out our new vest pattern. Please do consider subscribing if you enjoy watching us experiment and learn, and do leave us comments below about how you personalized your vest or share your versions, because we love to see the creativity.